The famous is the most easiest one for anyone to understand is the fixed deposit receipts. If you go for an audit and if you see a bank receipt, XYZ Bank Limited, fixed deposit of 1 crore with 7% rate of interest for 5 years, and you say, yeah, account in my general ledger also 1 crore, the bank receipt is also there. So from documentary proof, it is there, and we will just put a tick mark. Okay, the proof verified. Correct. If we do this, do you think is that sufficient?
No, we have to cross check.
How do you cross check?
Contact the bank and ask them for the FD receipts also.
So no, they don't issue FD receipt. They issue certificate of certificate of balances. So bank will send a confirmation that in name of this XYZ company, we have got following receipts, the fixed deposits with us. This is the account number, this is the amount, place of this, and that receipt number on that. Now, if you say that, okay, that the company is arranging for me, is that okay?
No.
Correct. If you really want to rely, no boss, aap hi manga ke de do, and if you just say that the company which has printed the fake deposit receipt, they can also create a fake certificate, right? So the auditor has to independently reach to the bank and collect the confirmation from the bank manager. That is the only sort of like safe method of ensuring. Now, why will you do that? Why will you have a doubt that this can be wrong? Because if you start doing like that, for everything you will have to go to somewhere. So you can't keep doing like that. So why would you do that? The question is, if you have a 1 crore fixed deposit and you are also taking a 50 lakh rupees of loan, does it make sense?
Yes.
In what circumstances you will have a deposit, but also you will take a loan?
With fixed deposit, I have a steady income, and with loan, I can expand my business or anything else.
So on fixed deposit, you earn 7%. On loan, I pay 9%. Does it make
Ye-
business sense?
Yeah, but we can also increase the percentage by earning with us.
Sorry,
We can work on our cap. We can work with this capital and increase our income or revenue or profit.
to have that in capital. Why don't you liquidate that 1 crore to make it 50 lakh and you make total 9% savings?
Yeah, but with this stable income of FD, we can show this in books and shareholder that we are earning stably.
And we are also paying from that interest to the bank at a rate of 9%.
Yeah, but we can generate more
So we are
income.
creating a steady liability of 9% while we are having a 7% steady income.
Yeah, some company do that.
No, some company do that. That's what. It doesn't create any logic, my friend. It doesn't create. There are so many companies. What you said is true. So many companies keep doing that. But if you go to basic financial principles, it does not make any sense. Yes, sometimes it has to be done when you have pledged certain things against, by giving the deposit. For example, you obtain certain non-funded guarantees against the deposits. So now bank will keep that deposit in their custody because they have done certainly. But if it is completely a liquid deposits, not hypothecated, then it does not make sense because you are creating a 2% additional liability, a fixed liability, against 7% income, you are just giving a commitment for 9% liability. It does not make sense. And that again, if it happens temporary, now whether the loan is temporary or whether the loan is a long time. So that defines, when you are saying that, no, I am doing for long time, then it doesn't make sense. If it is for temporary, for example, I have placed the deposit for 5 years, but I require loan only for 3 months or for 15 days. Then it does not make sense to break the FD and, no, it doesn't make sense for 15 days loan, right? I have a temporary shortage. So temporary shortage. So again, it depends on, what is the business finance model you are trying to run. Your short-term borrowing model, what is the borrowing model? So as an internal auditor, and I say that as an internal auditor, but then this question is not limited to only internal audit, stat audit, the credit checking audits by the bank. Every auditor can ask this question: what is your business short-term borrowing model, and how you want to do that? So suppose if you are sure that within 1 month I am going to collect this money back and I can repay my loan, yes, then you can keep your deposits in a safe. So you are right, but partly right. A long-term loan against the fixed deposit in the bank does not make sense. Now, Satyam was a 2009 case. Now, Gensol, do you know Gensol?
No, sir.
Gensol was a private limited company. Okay, let me open a brief case of that Gensol. Okay, I think, yeah. So Gensol Blue Smart Governance Breakdown. Now, this is from some institutes, management case study. So this is the paper published by them. Okay. And you see, audit and control mechanism, the dog that did not bark. People are saying, that it is a very old saying, auditors are, hound dogs or some that kind of, but so that's, they use the word that did not bark. That means they did not raise the red flags. They did not report the related, party transactions. So this was it's basically Ahmedabad-based company. They were into solar panel installation commissioning type of a company. About 2-3 years back, when this electronic vehicle business started on a heavy scale, they with their own history, these Jaggi brothers, they were Jaggi is their surname. So these brothers started another company. See, Anmol Jaggi as the and practically they pulled out a lot of big money from the market, and that is why you see in the stock market, this is the graph of the stock market, where they took the money from this level. The stock price of that company went up to more than 1,000 and now practically blocked, because now that company has been, under now SEBI case. So SEBI has now, okay, where is the conclusion? And these were the famous, Enron was a famous case, but I did not take the Enron. Enron became the big case from US. And but then I wanted to cover only Indian cases. Otherwise, Enron was the biggest one in 2003, I think. So here again, a whistleblower, took the step, and a complaint was made to SEBI for a deeper, probing to found that how the fund is being siphoned. So company collected a fund from the public and they transferred to their personal accounts. by creating another subsidiaries, and they moved the money to them, gave them advance, and all that money they shifted to another their own funds basically. So they practically they use the public money. Ultimately, who is the loser? Public. So types of, there are many such things happening, and now when there are so many IPOs coming out with everybody thinking to make money, double money in the stock market, the chances of this also happening are also many. So people have to be very cautious on this. This we know, digital payment scams happen through OTP, UPI link, click here and that. And there were lots of cases in the first half year of 2024, last year, of this KYC documents. You know that there are so many times we keep signing that, for mobile SIM, please sign here. For this, you please sign here, give your Aadhaar card and you give a sign and then you give it. Now, those papers are misused and created lots of documents. I mean, there are frauds, monetary fund transfers using your KYC documents and all that stuff. So then the bank and the government started, advising the general public about what precautions to take for to avoid these scams and to save ourselves. Is anyone who has faced recently, either digital scam or KYC scam? Anybody faced?
No, sir.
Wow, how many people are there in our group? Out of 100, I think I had seen about 100. 160. Out of 160, if everybody is safe, then, I am talking to a very educated class of our participants. So I'm so happy. But unfortunately, it happened with one of my client, finance manager. What happened is, and I think this happened about 2 years back. It made news. It was news even in the newspaper that we suddenly get an SMS from the electricity company. Sir, this was a Gujarat. So Gujarat Electricity Company sending that your 50,000 bill is outstanding. Please pay immediately. Otherwise, within next 2 hours, we will cut your electricity line. So he received, as a finance manager, his mobile was registered for the company. And he received some 90,000 demand on the mobile and said that you please pay on this link immediately. Now, that was, I think, Saturday afternoon. And he was not, like he had some other urgencies at the home and that. So instead of going back to office and do that, he had the facility to pay through online, through using mobile. And he paid 90,000. Once that 90,000 was paid, that SMS came from the bank that your 90,000 deducted, then another 1 lakh rupees deducted, then in another 15 minutes, another 2 lakh rupees deducted. And that luckily that bank account of that company had only about that much money only. So practically leaving only 4 or 5,000 rupees, the rest of the things were just, deducted. Now, one after the other, 2, 3 messages just gave him a sort of like a worry that why this happened. And then that man, again, maybe my age, 60s. So he asked his son, that son, why this message is coming. Now, son was a younger engineer, so he immediately thought, no, Papa, there is some problem. Let's rush to the bank and, go and complain that these are not correct payments because we did not trigger any payment. So, but that was a Saturday late afternoon. By the time they reached the bank, they were just like shuttered down. tried to reach the bank manager and all that stuff. He told that, okay, go to police department and lodge a police complaint and cybercrime and, identify the cybercrime office and all that. Ultimately, he had to lodge a complaint, and then after a month, at least the money got refunded, but it happened with him just because of this digital payment fraud with OTP type of, fake link, and, money was deducted. So we have to be very, very careful in any case, anywhere. Now, now the government is, doing a big campaign about to educate everyone. Sometimes the campaign is too difficult for us. कि कितनी बार इसको सुनेंगे? But, the fact is people lost lakhs of rupees, and even today they are losing many places. Now there is the famous, what happens is that digital arrest, right? So digital arrest is also another mode by which people try to do cyber fraud. How, as an auditor, you can find that? As an auditor, our duty is to see that this kind of system of OTPs and links, and whether the one person has got all the authority or not, those kind of protecting controls are established or not. You should check that. If that manager had a dual signatory type of a situation, then he would have, passed the transaction, but the next person, maybe another MD or somebody, would have thought, ideally, like, same mistake may not happen with the two persons. But again, this is like a 50-50 chance. Most of the time, the senior person, MD or CEO, who has got a second authorization level, they always believe, "Arey, finance manager kiya to theek hoga," and then they will just go and, approve the next transaction. Or sometimes they select bulk transactions at a time, 20 transactions, select that and approve, because I don't have time to go through each line by line. So these kind of behavior, this kind of the way of the procedure, this has to be tested, checked beforehand by the auditors. So when we do risk control matrices, or we document IFC, internal financial controls, I believe that itself is a separate topic with lots of details about how IFC should be written, how IFC can be tested, and how IFC are useful to protect from the fraud or even from the errors. Now, difference is if it happens without, like, that finance manager did not do fraud for himself, but that he was frauded, right? It is somebody else outside the organization who got the money, right? So it is not always that finance manager or the employee are the, sometimes they are the victims. And so internal financial control can help to create that, whether it's a fraud related controls or is it just accounting, reporting controls, all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure whether, everybody knows about IFC, but it's a fairly reasonable, nice method of documenting all the controls which can help you to detect the fraud. Can I move on? Another live case, right? I mean, not live case, a case study which came into my knowledge at one of the site audits. You can see this scrap, right? This kind of scrap exists many places. You go to some projects and there'll be always a scrap yard, and you will find, heap of the scrap, right? Now, is anyone having a question so far? Before I go take you into the details on this. Hello?
No, sir.
Thank you. What happened with this? A little story about that. When we went for an audit, the audit was about a 1 week audit. So every day during lunchtime, while we are going back from canteen to our office, we used to see that on the backside there is a scrap like this. And there were two employees who were going towards the scrap yard. So first day when I noticed, I asked, "Hey, where are you going?" He said, "No, no, we are going to scrap yard." "Why you are going?" "No, after lunch, just little walk." I said, "Very nice. Good for health." "Why?" "Okay." Next day, again I noticed, good for health walk, right? These two employees were going to that scrap yard. Now, third day, I felt like, why not let me also look at the scrapyard. What is so interesting? Why they will go all the way to the scrapyard? So first of all, the scrapyard was almost like 400 meters away. Now, for the namesake, it's a good health walk. You will not walk in a 40-degree temperature, right? So something, like the famous, CID story, kuch to garbad hai, So I thought, why that two people are always going there, and why always these two people, those two employees. So I just followed them and I tried to see that what they are doing. So unfortunately, they did not notice me that I am following them, and then they went to this yard and tried to look inside this scrap, and after a while they started walking back. Then I just kept, a little hide myself. And then once they were out of the picture, I went there to see what they actually saw. And I found some copper items. Okay. So copper items, the copper is a very costly material. And this was a project maintenance. So in project, lot of, the AC and those kind of huge ducts and all that, these kind of pipes, all that, lot of places there are copper material used. So I said, okay, it is a project maintenance and that. Now, while we were doing the stock review, inventory records review, we found that there were always a stock adjustment entries passed in the copper items. There were quarterly stock reviews. So going through the 1 year data, we found that in all the 4 quarters, there were stock adjustments passed in the copper item. So, okay, very nice. Then we tried to find what is the scrap rate available in this market. And we found that this gentleman, the scrap buyer, was giving a 1 rupee extra, for the scrap. The scrap was in per kg ton. So that type of rate. So there is a 1 rupee per kg extra rate. Okay. Now like there was sufficient number of evidences that something is fishy. Because why there are stock adjustment in copper items? Why those two employees are going to the scrap yard? Why I found copper in the scrap yard, and those items which stock adjustment are happening, the similar items were seen in that scrap yard. And then we took that, those few samples from that copper scrap yard, and we took it out and just gave it to the quality department. They said these are perfectly, good pieces, not to be, thrown into scrap. And then, a lot of investigation happened. Finally found that those two gentlemen working in the shop floor, they were, from the site floor, they were putting these items into, when they are throwing away that in a bucket, they are sending these items in the bucket to the scrap yard. And they had told that the scrap yard, scrap buyer, that they were putting this scrap, copper items in that. So they should now, sorry? Hello? So scrap buyer knew that he was getting copper inside this general scrap. So definitely he was ready to pay extra money. And we material movers, when we did the investigation, these material movers came as a whistleblowers. So when we asked the material movers, he said, no, this material movement is done only by these two employees. And they insisted that, no, this material wahi log bhejega. And that is how, we found a fraud. And that fraud was that commission was paid by scrap traders to those two employees. Interesting case. Now, if you visit to any scrap area, you will always remember this case. Summertime, good for good for a health walk. Next one. Now, I think this is a very old case. You can see October 1998. Probably some of the participants were not born even at that time. I assume that many of you are very young boys and girls. So, you know about this rounding of magic, or it is called salami slicing. Anyone having an idea?
No.
No, sir.
This used to be called, like 1998 and those years, we were like India and many of our like generation, they were becoming a programmers. The computers just started becoming a very interesting thing, just like drones now becoming an interesting thing. Computers were becoming an interesting thing. So I did not find a real bank case, but we had heard at that time that a programmer in a bank software made a truncating numbers to their bank account, his bank account. And so while doing a calculation, for example, if you apply an interest, you know that after decimal, there are 3, 4, 5 digits. So what that bank account person did is that only 2 digits were credited. First 2 digits were credited, and the remaining credit amount was transferred to his account. And he created a programming in that logic in the bank software by which the extra decimal amount was credited to his own account. And within a year, he had accumulated $1 million. Now it's a very famous story, but I could not search on the Google that where again, in which bank did actually happen. But this was a journal, Salami Fraud by Mr. This, in a Network World Security newsletter. So it's one journal published on 24 July 2002. Okay. This article published this item. So these paras are picked up from this article, this particular newsletter. And it also stated that even with the gas line, now you know that they call gas, but it is actually the fuel pipe, our petrol and diesel type of fueling, right? So in America, by adjusting this meter, the programmer earned a lot money, So, hello. So this is also, that means the technique is you create a small size of fraud. It is so small that nobody will even think about it. For example, here they say that this was not difficult. See, however, the fraud was difficult to prove because the perpetrators programmed the chips to deliver exactly right amount of gasoline when asked for 5 or 10 gallons amount. Matlab, if you are normally checking 5 or 10 gallons, $5 gallon or 5 gallon amount, that will be dispensed perfectly. Only when you take a large amount. So suppose, for example, if you are filling 100-liter tank, or in a car, for example, 30-liter tank, it will charge you 33 liter. But normally every bikers are charging, filling only 1 liter or 2 liters. So for up to 5 liters, that, chip is working perfectly. It's only in very high amount. Now what will happen? 30 and 50 liter people will not mind about 1 liter here and there. And imagine now at one petrol pump itself, there are 100 cars filling, and there are 2 liters being charged extra. 200 liters of petrol will be charged extra to the consumer, which, the gas people, the pump person would enjoy extra. So this is another kind of a fraud. This is not a fraud through, through a bank account or something. This is like stealing something, right? Cheating. But this is another, many people say that. Now, it's very difficult for us to check that when you buy a pack of 100-gram chips, okay, whether it actually contains 100 grams or it contains 95 grams or 97 grams. We don't know. That 3 grams of saving on 1 lakh packets per day will make how much saving for the company? So again, it is a fraud. You are cheating customers. So it is similar analogy, rounding of magic I mentioned, because originally it came in the light for a bank rounding of interest calculation. Technically, it is called salami slicing, and that technique can be used for petrol pump, for wafer chips, for even bank calculations, so many places. Have you come across this similar incident anytime? Hello?
No, sir.
No,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
No, sir.
Why? How much time I have? 30 minutes. Right? Hello?
Yes, 30 minutes, sir.
Yeah, 30 minutes. Okay. I believe that if you, this is, why I'm focusing here is, this is not just a fraud for some auditors to detect, and that this affects, this kind of techniques are used by many companies and many type of, suppliers. As not as an auditor, but as a consumer also, we should know that, because this is eating our money. So we should be careful about this. And I am not sure why everybody says that, no, we have not come across incidents like this. But even in 10 years life, you have not come across such incidents, then you are not vigilant. You are not vigilant, you are not observant to the type of commercial transaction which you do. So even if you buy something, it is a commercial transaction. You are paying somebody, right? And this sense of, checking it, whether this is correct, accuracy, liking for accuracy, that has to be always there. We should learn this art. This skill is very much necessary. I hope people will take that. This is not just academic. This is very useful, practical in life. And this technique is used by many people. Like, very commonly people will say, scrap people, when they come at home to buy the Radhi paper, the newspaper and all that, they hold the weighing by the hand, and they will say that they will push, they will not give the correct weight. Now what they are doing, they are still doing a fraud, right? And this is a sort of a rounding off, like small amount of cut. That small amount of cut over the day with so many transactions amounts to a huge money. So yeah, you should be aware of this and try to use it practically. Okay. Let me move on to understand that we have talked a lot about the fraud. So as an auditor, if you want to find out whether there is a fraud happening. So what are the symptoms? That means, how do you know that some fraud is happening? Right? So for example, living beyond one's means, that means you find somebody who is living not as per the capability of that person's earning. You remember that first case of that wooden pallet, where I said that person had gone to Goa, and we know that he cannot afford to go Goa with, such a small salary, and the Goa staying in a Taj and all that. Then that person said, no, this was sponsored by the supplier company. Even if you are paid by supplier company, still, staying at Taj Goa is not an easy. So you definitely have an earning beyond the, the regular books of accounts. So for example, if you find, and that in the newspaper so many times it comes that, an officer was found with 10 crore worth of assets, but his salary was only 40,000, doing the job only for 5 years. So how a 50,000 worth of monthly income person can accumulate assets worth of 10 crore? So that itself is a flag, right? So if you notice somebody who comes, for example, if you go to an audit place and you find that he's a junior clerk, but he comes in OD, do you think that, with this, 25, 30,000 of junior accounts officer can come by OD? Do you think it's do you think it's possible?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Possible only if his father is, from Ambani family. Right? So, you should check that. So while you are doing an audit, these kind of, we should say the soft skills area are very important. You can't find that on a paper. You can just watch that. If I go to an audit place and if I see that young boy who comes on that, 5 lakh rupees of bike, but he's acting as only material mover, right? Then I will have to think that, okay, where is he coming from? Oh, he's from village. Okay. But now I found that, no, he is an owner of a 10-acre farm. Okay, maybe he can afford that. He's doing this material movement work because of his hobby to work in a company. Otherwise, he has got a lot of money. Again, if this kind of, rationalization does not convince, these are not convincing answers. There will be something different. Or it will, if not today, it will happen tomorrow. When you find similar type of situation, like whatever list, presented on the screen, you can see that this is a mud. Someday there will be a trouble. Okay. For example, this one is very, very common. Unusual close association with vendors and customers. Now, people will say it is very necessary. Yes, it is necessary. There are so many companies where it becomes very necessary that employee have to go to vendor's place to understand, check the quality, check the design and drawings and all of that. And then they take you to lunch and then they give you Diwali gift, all of that. But then ultimately, one day it becomes this gentleman. Okay. Another one is the work pressure. Sometimes you come across somebody who says that, he has got a lot of work pressure. He has taken up so many things. Now, if you find that humanly it is not possible for somebody to handle the marketing and purchase and administration and everything, but that person is trying to do that. Nobody does anything for free, right? So if his salary is only 25,000 and he's managing, a branch of, doing a business of 5 crore, you should doubt that. You should have definitely checked that in detail, because with 25,000 salary, so yearly you are earning only 3 lakh rupees. and you are managing entire 3 crore, 5 crore worth of a branch, not so easy, unless that material and that quality or all the business model is different. But otherwise, usually this is not the case. Okay. Somebody whom if you see, sometimes if you go to an audit, I don't know whether you guys are actually have an experience going to an audit sites, audit places. Is there in our 100 plus members, is there who somebody has been to audit places?
No, sir.
In my life, I have seen about 200 factories. And I really love going to audit places and interact with the ground level people. So you find, sometimes if you meet somebody, then they will keep saying about, salary problem. Like, sir, my salary is like this, itna pagar mein to kaam nahi hota hai. But that person will continue for 15 years, right? You have to take it with with a double check that, that person is actually earning something else. Okay. If that person has got some behavioral addiction problem, the person does not take any vacations, okay, or the person has got 100% trust, like, my driver, like 100% trust, I can give even 5 lakh rupees on his hand and he will, I have nothing to worry. Those kind of trust also leads to trouble one day, so, or the person who wants to work alone, he will not want. He will always see that moment you say you have a lot of work, let me give you an assistant. That person will say, no, I don't need anyone. He will always complain about the work. He will also complain about the money, but still he will not take any assistance. The chances are that there are something fishy happening. Okay. So if you come across a behavior like this, you are seeing a potential fraudster. Okay. Do you have any other symptoms, in your mind that, okay, whether if I meet somebody and if the person behaves like this, will it be a fraudster?
I think there is a question in the chat box on the same lines. Somebody wants to.
Okay, let me go to chat. Sir, I have a question. I am teaching in a government school where there are several funds for different committees. I feel that the people in the office are not sending the money for students' well-being. What shall I do? Through what channel? Kindly explain in detail. Wow. Now, you won't believe, educational frauds are very, very common. Very common, and also sometimes, convincing that, to make some low number money for managing our corruption funding, we'll have to do like that. But how to do that? One simple question is that we need to see that who is holding the cash. Normally this happens when the money. Now, typically in schools, I don't know, even with so much of, banks available, online payments available, facilities available, people try to pay 200 rupees in cash, what they said, this is tuition fee, this is canteen fee, this is bus fee, like that, everything is paid in cash. So people holding the cash are the biggest potential, Again, if you go to fraud triangle, you are getting an opportunity. Okay, and you have a rationalization that if I take the risk of holding 5 lakh rupees on behalf of the educational institute, I can use that money, until the day, I have to make the deposit. For example, one case we had noticed, the headmaster, the class teacher used to collect the money, and the money was supposed to be deposited in the bank as per the institute's guideline. But, when we audited the bank statement, no money was given, but they paid that, the entire 12 lakh rupees has been collected from the children. And so we asked for that if the entire money is collected in the children, and then in tally, it was accounted as cash in hand. So I said, give me, cash in hand. I want to count the money. And he said, no, I can't keep the cash in my pocket and that I have kept it in my home. So who allowed you to take you to the home? Is that a policy? So no, there is no clarity, no policy about that. So, okay. And then we said, okay, so bring the money tomorrow to count. Now, meanwhile, we informed the chairman of the institute that, this is the case where this class teacher is saying the money is at the home. Now, we have 100% doubt, but entering that home and collecting the cash or asking for the money is not within the purview of the auditor, because that amounts to investigation, and investigation has to follow a different kind of rules. It has to have a legal backup. So later all of those things were done, and then we found that that person actually did not keep it in a home also. He had kept in the bank in his own FD name, and he wanted to earn interest on that FD. So he said whenever there is an audit used to come, then he will withdraw the money and deposit the money into the institute bank account, and he would have enjoyed that interest as his side income. So there are so many such things, in your particular case, very specific case you are mentioning. I can't help you right now giving that, but if you want to discuss without using any name, you can give the actual scenario. Maybe I can give you a hint, Ms. Suchita. Or should I move on?
Yeah, I think we can go on. So she has responded.
Yeah, she says, okay. Yeah, Suchita, you can still come back. Give me a minute. After 12. 12 बजे के बाद 10 मिनट नंतर. Okay. Sorry, gentlemen. So let me go to, there was another question. I think I can mail you the details. Yeah, you can mail the details. Yes, good. We will discuss that. Let me complete another couple of slides pending. Yeah, you can see only 2 slides pending. So let me finish that. So now, once we know that what is a fraudster, behavior, if you go to a company and if you find this kind of situation, then you should have an assumption that there is a fraud in progress. Now, not necessary, but high potential of this. For example, to prevent, disclosing of a fraud, so many times companies, delay the finalization of accounts. Normally finalization happens by 31st March, and then, within 1 month, the company should come out with the results. But it is not possible. If they keep on delaying till like June, July, August, September, the chances are that they are manipulating the books of accounts just to either hide the fraud, or they want to themselves conduct a fraud if they themselves have come up with. Recently, for example, we had one client where they detected a fraud in mid of March. Around 10th March, they found that there was an employee, purchase department, who had done a fraud. Now, because of that investigation, exactly, they wanted to find out how much money he made and what kind of things, and whether any other person was involved and all those not. That investigation went up to June. And that is why till June, they could not give us the finalized balance sheet, which they were supposed to give us. So when they were just delaying that time, as an auditor, we asked that. So accounting department said nothing about it. But when we approached the directors, we learned that there was this case, investigation was going on. So this is another one. Another few things, from when you study a financial books of accounts, Unfortunately, we jump to numbers more and we do not read this. Sometimes statutory auditors, while signing the balance sheet to protect themselves or to give a hint about things, they also mention this changing in accounting policies. If you keep saying that, there are some changes in accounting policies, you should be skeptical about that. Why accounting policy had to be changed? Is it because of the government, governance, some new rules or acts, or is it because just to present a better balance sheet? Another situation where you find that continuously company is running into losses. If they run into loss, the natural reaction will be they will have to have loans and advances to keep funding. So you will find a lot of overdrawn loans and advances. If the limit is, for example, 2 crore or 5 crore amount, but they have taken further amount as a temporary overdraft or something. So those kind of situations are indicators that something is problem in the company. Now, problem in the company may not be definitely a fraud. It may be another kind of a irregularity. But if that situation continues for long, generally then, a fraud comes out. Fraud normally stays like a iceberg. You see only, very small portion outside, but there is a lot of things inside. So you have to, always see with a, an eye of, doubt. High amount of wastage showed in the books, and that investment profits not supported by increased cash ability. For example, as I said, when you have a deposit or non-preparation of bank reconciliation is a very good control. Many people try to hide the fraud through bank reconciliations. It's a very important control. People will just normally say BRS mein kya rehta hai, but it is there. And the change of auditors. Sometimes, the companies directors themselves keep on changing the auditor, so that every auditor is for the first time trying to understand, and they cannot pick up the very first year, what was happening in the last, because the previous auditor would only share what was documented, and so many things would have remained undocumented or informal information. Auditing techniques used to uncover, forensic auditing is when you exactly want to do an investigation. Data analysis and pattern recognition, very famous. As I told you, that case of seminar bill 0008, that mobile number created this doubt. So that is the pattern recognition, right? Substantiation testing is that you test the transaction to the ultimate last document, the base document. Internal control evaluation is that walkthrough which I was just mentioning, where even ERP rights, access rights are very critical. So many times, because ERP creates a situation where you get an opportunity to approve something which you actually, you in a sense, the officer should not have done that, but ERP offers them. Continuous auditing monitoring, yes, this is very useful. That is why quarterly internal audits are normally the norms. Those who try to postpone to a yearly norms, again, either they are giving a chance, for a fraud. Quarterly is a reasonable audit method, but wherever if you find that, overall structure, internal control structure is weak, then my practical experience is that monthly testing, monthly auditing is very helpful. Whistleblower system definitely very useful, but unfortunately in MSMEs and in Indian scenario, there are not so many companies establishing whistleblower procedure. Normally, whistleblower comes only as a informal discussion when the auditor meets the ground level, a junior security guard or a clerk or even a driver like that. those people act as a whistleblower, and from there we learn about potential problems. Okay. These are the detection checklist. So how you can do a fraud detection, so you should do document authenticity check, transaction legitimacy, authorizations, third party verification. Third party verification is that, when we talked about the, going to the bank manager and checking that, physical fixed deposits. So that is a third party verification. The most important part is the physical part. Third party verification, again, when you go physically, very physical control are very, very important. Here, for example, system versus physical checks. Very important. Lots of frauds comes out only by physical check. For example, when I said about my doubt on that project scrap of the copper items, it happened only when I did physical evidence. When I went there and saw the copper parts, that is the when, I really thought something is wrong. Why the copper parts are there, and why copper parts are merged with this general scrap. Normally, all the scrap, whenever the scrap dealing is happening, it has to be segregated into its typical parts. So plastic scrap separate, metal scrap separate, within the metal again, heavy steel separate, mild steel separate, copper separate, wooden scrap separate. These are the good methods of managing the scrap if you find that these methods are not used. So again, these are the auditing in practice. So once you start seeing that, you actually visit physically and you find whether there is a potential fraud or not. There is recurring payments are also another way of. The circular transaction is also a very, this is what normally people use in GST scam, circular transactions. And circular transactions are also a big problem in related party transactions. This also happens, a big problem for money laundering thing. Okay. Okay, there are two more slides to cover this case. How much time I have, or did I complete my time?
Sir, वैसे we are done, but I think we can quickly
Take
discuss.
5 minutes. Both are very interesting ones.
Oh yes, absolutely, sir.
This
Okay,
one,
sir.
again, this one came as a, when we went to a site and a junior assistant was vouching that site vouchers. Now, you know that typically this kind of water bottles are delivered at the sites, because every site, when I say site, you have to imagine, suppose a railway work is happening 20 kilometers away from the city, and the workers are there, project manager cabin is there, and the people wants to have a water. So these kind of bottles are delivered to the site, right? Now, this particular site had somebody delivering the water every day, something like 10 bottles. Now, you know that this one bottle contains 20 liters. Normally, this bottle is 20-liter bottle. So, 10 bottles every day, that means about 200 liters of water, right? And there was every day small cheat, handwritten cheat, 10 bottles, rupees XYZ, okay? And this was almost daily. Frequency of supply was checking. It was almost daily. Now, why this junior assistant had a doubt that he saw that there was no gate stamp. Now, normally in a project site, there will be a fence and a security guard will sit there to stamp every voucher. Whatever comes in, they will stamp the challan. So in these water bills, there was no stamp. So he had a question that why there is no stamp, and then he said, "Itna pani ke liye kaun count karega?" It comes in a one small vehicle. There are so many bottles inside. They put the good, like filled bottles here and take away the empty bottles. So I said, okay, good. Now suddenly, that same junior assistant said, सर 200 लीटर बोतल तो ज्यादा नहीं होता है. I said why? तो उधर तो 5 ही आदमी काम करता है. I said how is it possible? Only 5 people drinking 200 liters of water every day. But 25 भी पी लिया तो बहुत हो गया. So something is wrong, Then we asked for that. How do you collect and deliver and that? So they said, no, this is a regular person. He will put the, filled bottle here and he will take away the empty bottles. And we said that, but who is counting when he's putting the delivery and that? No, nobody is there. He's trusted person, this and that. Ultimately, that person was hardly refilling only 2 bottles or 1 bottle per day, but was giving the 10 bottles bill. All bogus bill going into the pocket of that water dealer, water supplier. So this actually happened there. This is another famous case which happened recently. Again, you should be very surprised. ये तो सब आपको मालूम होगा भारत पे many people used also, right? Or they still use, right? Do you know that co-founder, this Mr. Grover, had a big trouble just a year, 2 years back? Anybody aware of this? Recently,
Yes.
this became a very SEBI case, and this was there in a newspaper. Nobody aware? Hello?
Yes, sir.
No, I think we should read newspaper at least. And at least
Sir,
Bharat Pay.
his brother-in-law does this.
Sorry? See, Bharat Pay became, so much of a limelight case because of, it's a very famous app, right? And this gentleman started the company and all of that, and suddenly the company itself is, filing a case against the owner. What they did is that, in a very short story, while, for such a company, they need to hire a lot of people. So they have to engage a lot of recruitment agencies, and they have to pay the recruitment agents. What they created, fake invoices and fake recruiter agents, and through their company, and they were the signing authority. So they will approve the bill and the payment will go to that recruiting agency. Ultimately, that recruiting agency bank account is their own account. Why did they do that and all that stuff is still sort of like a mystery, why an owner will do like this. But, ultimately the case went, he was removed from the committee, and then final, this is the last judge, status I got. This is a statement in a Grover said that I have reached a decisive settlement. Now, why he had to do a settlement? Because he did something wrong, correct? And I believe this. So he sort of transferred certain stake to reduce his equity stake as a settlement. And what he did was creating fake bills and fake vendors in the system and overcharged the company. He overcharged his own company. Just to have, like, again, Gensol, similar thing, So why owners, why, at such a top level person with such a huge salary, why they will do like that fraud? Yes. That is something like why cyclone can happen. It is like that, it can happen. At least I do not know the ultimate control of this nature. So why this human behavior is like that, I don't know. But fraud is a way of life. It happens, it's a fact. And what we have learned today is that auditors, through auditing techniques, can detect, at least identify the potential mud grounds. But let me tell you, auditors should not be directly engaging into investigation. Investigation, litigation is a very different legal, court system based exercise. Auditors are not supposed to be a lawyer and an investigators. Okay. Thank you very much for patient listening. Very few questions, but I hope the entire 2 hours
Thank you,
was
sir. No.
giving you practical experience.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir.
I will sign off
Thank you.
from
Thank you.
the.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
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 आवाज आ रहा है क्या?